there's an imposter on our hands. Because look what Sound Store Japan has listed. A neon purple burst 1968 reissue for a big bucks. So, where have we seen this before? Well, there was a dealer who custom ordered a small batch run of these, and he sent one to me to make a full review and demo of it. And everybody loved the 5-piece maple neck and the fact that it was an access custom, and they had that really cool neon purple into pink burst finish. It paid tribute to a 2000s era Gibson, but the whole divisive factor on this one was he left the backs natural like the original models, but still gave the nice finish to the neck, upgraded it to the 5 pieces of maple. It's a gorgeous instrument. But I'd never seen Gibson use this particular finish in the custom shop, so imagine my surprise when I go to eBay, there's another one. This dealer in Japan must have saw it when Guitarsenal first posted them and contacted Gibson and said, hey, I want that, but I want it the way I want it. Which in this case is the perimeter burst finish, and they decided to go quilt top. Quilt looks really, really, really good with this finish because it's such a modern look with the perimeter burst to begin with, so you need the more modern quilt. But this isn't our leading feature for nothing. It's got other fancy stuff. Like, check it, they paid the abalone tax. Not only on the fretboard, but also on the face, and then you get your pearloid tip Grover Imperial tuners. And then at first glance, it does look like a black back this time. However, when you compare it to a pure black back, they actually decided to go for a dark red. This is a little bit more traditional, I guess you could say. I missed the figured neck, but it is cool to have the binding. But you go from a really explosive finish, it catches your eye, and then they dull it down. Now, to be fair, if you're thinking I'm saying, hey, this is not right of Gibson to take his custom order idea and do it, that's not what I'm saying at all, because you got to remember, Gibson owns everything they do. Just because you submit a made-to-measure custom order doesn't mean that they're not just going to all of a sudden start mass producing them if they think that it is a marketable product. Unless you're a dealer who can put pressure on to Gibson saying, hey, we're not going to order as much this time. If you don't leave those things exclusive, you don't get to claim the rights to anything. I just thought it was fascinating to see one so soon. So maybe we'll see more neon bursts, because we've yet to see one get neon bursted everywhere. I'd like to see a maple-bodied version, and then we can just have a uniform look all over. But what's really funny to me is when you come down to the description, they basically just took what Guitarsenal was saying. Neon finish for Vegas High Roller. So I wonder if this guy actually custom ordered it, or did Gibson think that was a good idea and they're like, hey, let's fish this around to a couple of dealers in Japan to see if they buy it. Because that one's also a 2024 serial number, and usually you have like a, 6 to 18 month lead time on this kind of stuff. So it doesn't really line up for a different custom order. I think the custom shop was experimenting. But to continue our fun, I mean, once you go down the rabbit hole of eBay, Japan, they start listing a whole bunch of stuff. So this one's listed as Fire Tiger. I could care less about that. This reminds me of the Bats in Flight model. That's a really good top for one of these. That's the problem with custom orders, is you never know how they're going to turn out. You can pick your top, but once they've sanded it to shape, sometimes it changes the figuring, sometimes not. But that one is a nice mix between a little bit of quilty, but primarily a wide flame. But you've got your uncovered humbuckers, and then flipping over to the back, completely black. But they did give you the cool fancy tuner upgrade. And since we've got such clear, crisp white binding, it definitely does give it a different appearance. However, there's no tiger on this, and it looks like they overrouted our toggle switch route, so I'm not interested. Sometimes I'll get people contacting me about Fire Tiger and whatnot from 2017, because rightfully so, I'm the Animal Les Paul guy as well as the Spotlight guy, but unless there's a cheesy decal on the back, I don't want it. Unless there's some other really fancy, unique element to it, and this one, while cool, just doesn't quite have the it factor as a collection piece, but definitely as something to buy and play and be proud of. And this is another pricey one, $11,000. But look, it's got the sticker on the pick guard. I love stuff like that on collectible models. So if you're not familiar, 1994 is the first full year of the Gibson custom shop. So to actually have a 1957 reissue in this kind of condition, triple pickups, this is a pretty fantastic find. Sometimes it can be hard to date these because their serial numbers are a little bit weird. Now this photo appears to be censored, but 7 for 1957 1997-4, could be 1994, it could be 2004. The case makes me think he could be correct, and not all of them have the historic decal on the back, but if this model had that, I could actually see them getting their price. Something about that headstock makes me think it might be later. And I was happy to see this. Good old Gibson cowboy hat. These pop up from time to time. Now ideally, I'd like to pay about $30, but this just isn't your regular Gibson merchandise where, yeah, it's a Gibson hat, that's a cowboy style, there's a very limited market for that today. There's actually a story behind these, where this was an add-on prize if you bought one of the new Firebrand models, and I love those things, so I would love to have one of these hats to display by them. Such a photo right there, you gotta love it. The best way to top off your Gibson. Next up tonight, look at this awesome 1965. This is legit and not a reissue, but to be fair, it's just a melody maker. People make projects out of these all the time. And on occasion, you will find them with those figuring lines in it, but this one just looks so great, because it's either been refinished or somebody has just really aged all the cherry out of it. But the wood grain even continues on the backside. It's got a pretty nasty ding over here, but hey, these things are fantastic players. It doesn't even look like it had that dreaded headstock break that most of these do. Looks like someone was having a good time with it. And oh, it's a product of the late 60s, early 70s. Yep, that's a whole new finish because they stripped off the black paint. However, the Gibson decal they chose to use on this looks okay. I've seen worse. Much worse. And the whole multi-layered pickguard, you don't normally find that on this model, but it works. How much are they asking? $1,500? Now, to be fair, you can get a completely stock original one for the same price. However, this one does have a vibe. But speaking of vibes, here's a 1961 SG reissue made out of a different wood than usual. It's Koa. Looks like two-piece Koa. Sometimes these can look great, other times no. I'm not really sure where this one falls, but I like the splotchiness. However, if you custom ordered this looking for more uniform coloring, I could see how you might be disappointed, but I like the character this gives. It reminds me of art on a tanned hide or something, Native American style. Especially in this area. I mean, I could care less about the stuff over here. It's got a look too, but something about that looks really nice to me. And oh, fun, they even gave us a wooden truss rod cover. But boring. It's a Koa top, not a Koa body, because it's just your regular mahogany back here. With mahogany neck, headstock, all the other good stuff. If you want to see a cool Koa SG I have in my collection, check out the Flying Eagle episode. Perhaps its top isn't quite as exotic, but it's got a whole bunch of other stuff going on. Now we've got a fun one by Ninja Guitars. Advertised as clean 1980 the Paul Silverburst Les Paul Firebrand Tim Shaw PIF with OHSC. That stands for with original hard shell case, just in case you didn't know. I remember when I first got into guitars, I was like, what's all this OHSC stuff? Nobody ever tells you what it is. So, I've got a couple of problems with this listing. While Silverburst, Firebrand, the Paul Deluxe, etc. do exist, this ain't one of them, because they did not retain the natural headstock or have the branding on them. They just had your traditional black Gibson headstock. So looking through here, this probably started life completely natural, and somebody has just refinished it to this aged Silverburst on the top. Now, thankfully, we still have the original T-top pickups, and they did a decent job, to the point where I could see why somebody might think it's factory original, but no. Definitely not. And that becomes very apparent when you look at the back. You can tell that is not a high quality black finish. Ouch! At $3,200, I think they think it's original. But their description is one of those non-descriptions. That's definitely a broker. Do they have varying backgrounds on every single photo? That's how you know. Here's a beautiful one. It's a white Les Paul recording, 1975, right before they switch over into the other stylings of the knobs. I've yet to find my white Les Paul Artisan, but this is pretty close. The black binding with the white finish, it hasn't even aged too much. That is just absolute perfection, because it matches all the rest of the black that you got going on the entire thing. If only it also had an ebony fretboard, because then this would just be perfect. But look closely. Similar to an Antique Natural Spotlights special, they have double binding on the neck. So it still has the cream layer as well as the black layer. So in theory, we should have a multicolored fret nib. It's just kind of hard to see here. I am just in awe of how well preserved this one is, because even the non-played collector's editions, they tend to still yellow with age, unless kept in the very, very right conditions for their entire life. And to be fair, they might have manipulated these photos just a tad, because you can see the clear coat has yellowed a bit, but the inverse binding operation here just, yeah, that's good. I mean, imagine showing up to your next jazz gig with something as fancy as that, and with the custom Gibson Grover tuners. Although I am suspicious of this ABR1 bridge being replaced, because that looks nickel versus chrome. And coming down here, it's saying there's finish checking and stand burn marks. And overall, it's rated a B+, so maybe it's not as clean as it looks, but it is nice. But now we've got New Life Stay Gold with TV Burst finish, $9,000, 10% off. I'd never heard that before, so let's dive in here. First glance, it looks like we have some sort of a variation on Gold Burst, because you've got yellow, and then you've got this rusty reddish orange on the back. However, I'm not seeing any metallic nature to this. It's just a regular bursted color. However, as we come up here on the neck, it's starting to look more metallic and like it'll color shift. And we've got a whole lot of wood grain, so that tells us, yes, it is a TV finish. And then continuing to zoom in here, we've got some sort of a bronze stinger. And to think I only clicked this listing because I thought the back of the body was interesting looking. But the top reveal, doesn't do it for me personally. I think maybe black plastics would look, and why did they spec that out with a Nashville bridge? It's a historic reissue. I can see why their leading photo is of the back. That's definitely the most exciting. All right, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.